You can almost feel the fall foliage in the air for this episode of the Just Start the Conversation podcast. It's brought to you by St. Luke's University Health Network. Ladies, that was a tongue twister to kickstart this thing. I just want to make sure we're all on our toes to get ready to go here. The wonderful Jody, McCloud, Missmer, and Amie, Alandon, Dundon. How are we today?
We're really good.
Yeah, excellent. Amy's
Really
wearing
good.
a sweatshirt.
It is
I'm wearing a sweatshirt. Just want to point that out.
This was also the pre-show conversation, and my job as the host is to make sure that we move along at this point because it got a bit contentious. Anyway, the conversation that we're getting ready to have today is an important one, just as the rest of them have been, but the relationship between financial stress and mental health. And how, financial stress can obviously, it's not only just a mental thing, the physical toll that it could take on a person, a lack of sleep, among other things. So, Amie, I'm going to go ahead and start with you on this one. Can we just talk a little bit, kind of kickstart us on the relationship between financial stress and mental health?
Yeah, there's so many directions that we could have gone or we may go today, but I think one of the first things that came to mind when I started to really think about important things to talk about today was that, when you're struggling financially, the fear that comes along with that or can come along with that and the stress that come along with that can really damage your self-esteem. It can make you feel flawed. It can kind of put you in a place where sometimes, depending on the severity of the financial stress, you can really feel in a very desperate place. And if we're already a human being who suffers with any sort of mental health symptoms, let alone diagnosed disorder, financial stress can really throw what is seeming to be maybe a manageable depression into a place where it doesn't feel so manageable anymore.
Yeah, I think when I was doing research for today, one of the things that I found was that financial, or poverty rather, was the statement that they used, but poverty can both be a cause and a consequence of mental health. So I thought it was interesting to think of the risk levels that come with poverty or low income, but again, a cause and a consequence. And I think, that's kind of where you were going a little bit with the consequence piece. It depends which direction you're looking at this, right? So the lower financial income versus the mental illness, and I don't want to say, the chicken or the egg, but there have been studies that show that individuals who have a lower income actually struggle more with a lifetime of Axis 1 and Axis 2 diagnosis of that piece. But Amie and I were talking a little bit, and there's other pieces to that. So individuals who have certain mental illnesses actually may have symptoms that are associated with their spending or their...
Right. I mean, let's look at bipolar disorder, right? And folks with, now there are different levels of bipolar disorder, different types of bipolar disorder, but when folks are in a real manic phase of a mood disorder, oftentimes over shopping, over spending, booking trips that are elaborate, those sorts of things happen as part of the manic phase of that mental health disorder or condition.
Whether you have the money to do so or not.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Whether you're at a poverty level or at a Taylor Swift level. Sorry, Taylor Swift, love you. But bipolar disorder doesn't discriminate.
Right.
Right. So it doesn't matter who you are. It can a manic phase can certainly throw your finances into ruins overnight.
Well, and it makes sense because, and we'll post these resources, but according to, it was from 2016, the study I have in front of me, but it was a quarter of people experiencing a common mental health problem also have financial problems. So they're 3 times more likely than the general population to have or experience.
Well, yeah, sure. Because think about it. If I have major depression and I'm having trouble getting out of bed, taking a shower, changing my clothing, I'm going to be less likely to be able to go to work every day on time, keep a job, and it's just this kind of spiraling out of control situation. And then you have the economy of the United States today, and everything is expensive. So just finding a way to make ends meet when you have depression or anxiety on a good day is hard.
Right. No, it's true.
Can we talk a little bit about how this affects our relationships? Obviously, if you are a person who has a significant other, a family, maybe you were the breadwinner in your household, or you weren't the breadwinner in your household for that matter, and all of a sudden someone loses a job, a life event changes, things that happen. Can we just talk about a little bit the effect on relationships that a person who's dealing with financial stress and complications to their own mental health can kind of have on not only that individual, but the family close to them, the friends that are close to them? Jody, I'm going to go ahead and start with you on that one.
Yeah, I think we know that one of the key elements of disagreement in a relationship can often be finances. So if that's a symptom, if that spending or the loss of job secondary to a mental health condition, you're compiling or compounding the situation, quite honestly. So there's a real risk in a relationship when an individual's symptoms are not under control and they continue to put the responsibilities they may have and they're risking their family as a result of their symptoms. And I really think, for me anyway, I look at it as these are symptoms. And I think in a relationship, it's important that if you're with someone or someone who has struggled or does struggle with those symptoms, it's important to engage and have the conversation when you notice those symptoms starting to escalate, because I feel like that would be my responsibility to my loved one to say, hey, I notice that you missed 2 days of work this week, or I noticed that there were a couple of bags from, Pottery Barn, and not really sure what those are doing. So I think in a relationship, it's important to recognize where those symptoms are as you see someone overspending and kind of calling them out on it in a kind and compassionate way, because finances alone take mental health out of it if there's a financial stressor. So even if somebody lost their job, as using your scenario, Crockett, and it causes stress, now throw on top of that, if that individual lost their job due to or secondary to the symptoms they're experiencing, now it becomes that snowball down the hill. But I don't want to go on to another. I have another thought, but I mean, what are your thoughts on that in terms of the stress in the relationship? And
I think it's important to recognize that if somebody has lost their job or had a significant drop in income, and that's going to affect the running of the household, that it's better to get sometimes a third party, a financial advisor or a psychotherapist, somebody to help with that marital discord or family discord, because it can escalate pretty quickly. Because that person who lost their job or has had a big drop in income is already, I talked earlier about the loss of self-esteem and the despair. So they're already not feeling great about themselves and their ability to contribute to the household. And now, even if it's in a loving way, they're being questioned about it.
Sure.
That can very quickly escalate into some fighting or volatile situations, or God forbid, interpersonal violence. So you want to have conversations when you see them starting, but you also want to get professionals involved too to help.
I think it's important too to know resources, and that's probably where getting a professional involved is important. If you're a part of a spiritual, if you go to church, is there a food pantry? Is there something that other people can offer? Is there help with transportation? Is there a gas fund? I mean, there's a lot of things out there, but it's I'm even finding it's a tough conversation. Finances are a tough conversation to have. And talk about money or loss of job or all of those pieces. And I think that's where, when we start to look at mental illness or suicide or depression, policymakers really do, Jody's opinion, need to look at more than just the mental health. We need to take a stronger look at social determinants of health. We need to take a stronger and a more clear view on housing and food security and all of those pieces, because we know the research suggests it, that those are contributors to mental illness. We know, or to depression and to anxiety, and those are risk factors that we need to pay attention to just as much as someone who has experienced, again, my opinion, who has experienced trauma.
Sure. Lack of food, lack of, resources for new parents, lack of friends, lack of more social isolation, all of that stuff that happens in communities really does all lend itself to financial hardship.
Yeah. And then you look at access to health care, and you look at the ability to take care of oneself, and how you can experience physical conditions that then you're not able to take care of. And we don't see this as much in our very close local area, but there are places in this country and in this world where access to fresh food or fresh produce doesn't exist. There's all of those pieces that you start to look at when you look at a low income or a poverty situation.
Yeah, you mentioned access to healthcare. I mean, one of the things we know is that physical stuff that comes up, those physical symptoms like stomach aches and headaches and diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease. I mean, in countries without, free healthcare, money worries may also cause you to delay or skip seeing a doctor for fear of incurring additional expenses. And that happens in the United States all the time.
Yeah.
Co-pays are too high, and I can't pay my electric bill, so which one am I going to do?
Right. Co-pays for therapy. I mean, let's talk about that. If an individual needs access to a psychotherapist, a real life example, a co-pay for some is $50 a session. So if you're going to therapy once a week, that's $200 a month. How about that math? Just want to show that off.
Not even a calculator on the table.
Not even a calculator. We got that. Unless, of course, there's an extra week in there, and then it would be $250. But those are important pieces. I mean, we see that all the time, Crockett. We have a program where we provide integrated psychotherapy within schools, and we have parents who really want their children to receive services, but they can't afford the $50 or $75 or the $25 a week copay. Now, we have resources, and fortunately for children, we can work with those families to receive Medicaid, which supplements their commercial insurance. But for adults, that doesn't necessarily exist unless there's a significant disorder. But we're watching that happen in real time, where parents say, I know my child needs it, but I can't spare $250 a month or $200 a month.
Right.
You guys kind of took the healthcare direction, right, as I was getting ready to jump into that. And, we've obviously talked about quite a bit on this show for obvious reasons, that a therapist is a good middle person for a lot of different conversations that you might be trying to have with people you care about in large settings and small settings individually. So, as we're talking about the financial stresses, again, that stuff, because you guys spun right off on it too, co-pays and how much it costs to do that on a regular basis. So what do we do in this situation? Jody, it seemed like maybe you kind of had your thoughts, and it feels like a hard way to not ask you that question in this situation, because you would address the food needs, especially, I think it's we do a really good job of taking care of kids as well as we can. You were talking about what you do in schools, as grown-ups, as adults, as we kind of take on the ideas of mental health and financial stress. What in your world would you like to see done to kind of address these things? That seems like a realistic possibility. Amy's like, I'm ready to hear this one.
She's so afraid right now. So remember, for those of you who have heard us before, I was a social worker turned MBA. So I've got enough advocacy in my heart, but now I look at the business side of things. And so my role is different when I view this. But I will say that we in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in particular are in a very interesting position right now with some decisions that are being made in Harrisburg. And we have an opportunity right now, our representatives of us have an opportunity right now to impact the payer structure for mental health services right now. There's a bill going to the Senate that can positively impact the ability for adults experiencing behavioral health symptoms to get more help. So I would say in the right now, our Commonwealth needs to look at the impact of mental illness and the funding that they put towards it in a more comprehensive way. And they have an opportunity to start that right now. It's not going to fix it, but they have an opportunity to start it. We just had a recent panel discussion where we specifically talked about this, where many, many years ago, I'm going to go 11 years ago, they cut the funding for mental health services.
2008.
Yeah, so it was longer. That's right, because then we got a little bit of a bump up, and then that didn't even take us back to where we were in 2008.
Yeah.
So we're in 2023. We're about to hit
Here's some math for you.
2024. I know. Oh no, here we go.
I didn't want to point out the math again. But.
Here we go. But think about it. We're getting paid 2008 rates in 2023. Imagine if gas costs what it can, I don't know what it cost in 2008, but I'm thinking I just paid $4 a gallon in central Pennsylvania this weekend. I know it's a little bit less around here, but 2008 prices are very different than 2023 prices. Our Commonwealth has an opportunity to impact some base funding that people can get help. So that's my mini soapbox that I would say we can see our representative take this opportunity to do, because by spending that money, by putting that money in, we know that we can help more people come out of poverty. We look at that overall global spend.
The whole social determinants of health, what
Absolutely.
we could do with that money.
People are healthier. We're not spending as much money in the ERs.
Yeah.
So it's this whole downstream impact that can happen. So you probably didn't expect that answer, Crockett, but we have an opportunity right now in Pennsylvania to encourage our senators to take a look at that. And again, when I say this is a drop in the bucket, this is a drop in the bucket. This is like a little stone dropping in the middle of Lake Wallenpaupack, or Nockamixon. I'll go your way. But we need to look at it from a systemic point of view.
Right.
Because we're talking about the people who suffer more and who are impacted more. But again, if I go back to the first thing I said, it's does one cause the other, or does the other cause the other? And so if we know we can make an impact and we can make a difference, then why shouldn't we do that? And there are a lot of reasons why people would say we shouldn't. But I can tell you that in speaking to our local representatives who are on both sides of the aisle, this is not a divisive topic.
This is a bipartisan issue.
This is a very much a bipartisan issue, and I think it's important to take a look at that. And it's adult focused, right? It's adult focused.
Yeah, and I would say, so that's the political side of things, and I would say on a, what can we do kind of at our own level in terms of our own life, our own family, our own friend group. There are things we can do to help each other with finances, even though it's such a touchy subject. I think about, I'm a huge sports fan, and I think about, and I'm a Philly sports fan. So right now I'm in my glory, but I think about, it's okay. Jody's not necessarily on a winning side of things right now.
She's also not good at math. It's fine. She's got a lot of things to figure out.
We won yesterday. I just want to.
Okay.
I wasn't playing. Yeah, I know.
All right.
They won yesterday.
But if I think about all the sports and I think about sports betting, and here's where I'm going with this. When somebody's depressed.
I actually don't know where you're going with this.
So when somebody's depressed, when somebody has a lot of anxiety, when somebody maybe is feeling very lonely, they connect in any way that they can. And sometimes it's not healthy. Sometimes it's too much alcohol to kind of escape. Sometimes if especially our kind of younger adults with these sports betting apps, you can get into a whole lot of trouble connecting with your friends and saying, okay, I'll do this parlay if you do this parlay, and let's put 20 down on this and 10 down on this and 30 down on this. And before you know it, by the end of the night, that kid's $500 in the hole, or adult. But can we help each other with the little stuff we can control? Can we help each other maybe, hey, maybe you don't need to make 16 bets on the games this weekend. Maybe, whatever. It's okay to talk about that stuff because it all affects us financially. It affects us emotionally. It's all connected, right? So if I'm sports betting and drinking too much and escaping that way, it's going to really adversely. Then next week I'm like, oh, no, I can't pay my, my heating bill.
It should be a conversation. I agree.
We have to talk about it. Yeah. We have to help people. You don't have to have 16 different gaming apps on your phone. You don't have to, I tell people all the time that are having just general financial trouble, what are the apps on your phone that it's easy to just press the app, make a purchase, and be done in 30 seconds with 2 clicks. Don't save your credit cards in your apps.
It feels very different. And I think these are where we can kind of come into some tips, Crockett. So it's very different when you pull actual dollars out of your wallet and you hand it over to someone. Then you take your phone and it makes a really cute sound, because it does. It's a really cute sound. It's like, ba-ding.
They spent millions of dollars getting that sound. That's just right. The way they need you to hear it.
How do we need that to sound to make people go, oh, that was good? And so it's so easy that it's too easy. And I use it, but I notice and I pay attention to how easy it is. But you're right, getting rid of some of those convenient elements when you know you might be someone who's at risk for that being a symptom, or that doing those things causes anxiety. We talk about buyer's remorse. That's a thing. It's anxiety is what it is. It's whenever you purchase something and you walk away and go, oh, should I have done that? We all know that feeling. But now let's multiply that for someone who has depression or has generalized anxiety disorder. And, you're still going to have to spend money. But to your point, Amie, I think those are really good tips to say, take that stuff off your phone. Get Amazon. Take the Amazon app off of your phone. Get rid of it.
Or at the very least, don't have any payment methods saved in there. So it makes it a little harder for you to have to actually get your card out and put your numbers back in. And in that time, maybe you'll think about it again, right? You can also, a lot of banks, and most people don't know this, you can ask your bank to block payments to gaming apps.
Really?
So for somebody that maybe has a gambling addiction, or that's just feeling like they're out of control with it, you can ask your bank to block payments to certain.
Right now, my husband, if he listened to this, he is calling the bank to find out if all payments to Amazon can be blocked. I guarantee it.
Are you having a problem we need to talk about?
I don't think it's a problem.
Sounds like we've got next month's episode lined up here.
But I think it's interesting. You can go in a lot of different directions with the financial component. And Amie and I were talking a little bit before we came on, and she actually was going in a direction of how people's symptomology impact their spending. And I was looking at it from a research social determinants. And I think the reason why I was guided that way a little bit, to be perfectly transparent, is in September, I had the opportunity to spend my second year together with veterans, which is a suicide prevention commission that was started. It focuses on rural areas for veterans to help reduce suicide. And we unfortunately serve in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania an area that is the number one veteran suicide completion in Pennsylvania, and it's Carbon County. And I've been a part of this commission now. We're going on 4 years. And one of the things that they talked about this year at the National Convention was that loss of housing, inability to have a job, not having transportation, and zero mental health diagnosis for veterans is all higher risk factors than having been diagnosed with depression. So they when you look at that, that's when I say policymakers have to look at things differently, because I think we focus on the diagnoses when in reality there are things that happen to individuals that lead them to feeling helpless and hopeless. And finances is certainly a part of that. And that's
a big
the
part
direction.
Of that, especially for vets coming out of active duty or home from active duty and feeling kind of lost in society.
They just lost their entire. You want to talk about support. You want to talk about a structure of friends and colleagues. And I mean, literally, you're taking someone out of an environment where they had food security, housing security. They never had to worry about transportation security. All of that was fine. And their buddy was right next to them at all times. Now they're coming out and they have none of that. Yeah. And so it's important as policymakers that we look at that from the veterans' perspective as well, because they're at the highest risk when we look at individuals for helplessness and hopelessness.
Yeah.
So we're at about our time limit here, but Amie, I know Jody said that you guys kind of came from coming the opposite way of the fork in the road to kind of meet right there at the stem in the road. Is there anything that maybe you wanted to address that we just didn't get a chance to talk about extensively in this episode? Because I certainly want to make sure that we're getting kind of both sides of that coin. Just if there was anything that we didn't get to just yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on, we could do 6 episodes on finances, right? I think just kind of from a mental health standpoint, I think it's important for everybody listening to think about your spending today. Think about it as you drive throughout your day, and be really mindful of your spending. Sometimes it's easy to go through a drive-through and pick up a Starbucks or a quick, at a convenience store, pick up an extra pack of, I'm a sweet tart girl, so an extra pack of sweet tarts,
I didn't see her as a sweet tart girl.
Anyway.
I didn't see anybody as a sweet tart girl.
I might be the only one left, but I really do enjoy them.
That leaves plenty of options for you at the store. Please continue.
Yeah, they're never out of sweet tarts.
Okay, I'm very simple. But
she's mindful when she purchases her sweet tarts.
I know I'm buying them and I know what they cost. But that's, when I went yesterday to buy my Powerball ticket, we're up to 1.6 billion. I know I'm not going to win. And I was mindful when I spent money on a Powerball ticket that I'm not going to win. And when I bought it anyway. And as I picked it up, I picked up the sweet tarts and I left Turkey Hill. And
we're not sponsored by Turkey Hill.
No, but if you want to sponsor us, that would be fun. Turkey Hill and sweet tarts. Anyway, think about what you're spending as you're going through your day.
Yeah.
Be really mindful. Make an itemized list for yourself. Keep a budget. Include, every source of income. Keep track of all of your spending, all those little insignificant things that we do all day long that we don't think about. List your debts. Identify your spending patterns and your triggers. Talk about it openly with your family. Mm-hmm. but we're all in the same society where everything is costing a whole lot of money. And, you have to identify your financial problems and then work with people around you to come up with a solution. And know that if you have depression, anxiety, substance use disorder, process addiction, that you need to keep an even heavier eye on that stuff, because it can creep up and just make things worse.
And I think you should find someone who you trust can hold you accountable. Mm. I think that's an important piece too. It's okay for me to say to Amie, hey, I know we're going out to dinner tonight, which we're not, but I know we're going out to dinner tonight. Just remind me when I want to get 6 appetizers and 3 margaritas that I'm A, trying to watch what I'm eating, and B, I can't afford that. So just if I go in that direction, just kind of go, maybe you don't want to get that.
That's a great point. And also I think if you're going anywhere with friends or family, and you're really thinking, I don't really need to spend money here or use a credit card here, give the credit card or the debit card to somebody that's with you that you trust. If you're going into a casino with your friends and you want to do $20 on the slots and that's it, then you take a $20 bill with you. Everything else stays at home. You got to stay one step ahead of yourself and use your family, use your friends, and if you have depression, anxiety, mental health issues, don't get derailed by setbacks, because setbacks happen. You talk to people, get back on track.
Excellent. I think that's a good spot to wrap up. Leaning into your support system in any circumstance, whatever it is that you're dealing with, I think is a wonderful thing. It is the Just Start the Conversation podcast. It's brought to you by Turkey Hill and Sweet Tarts.
Oh my God. That's what you went for?
I'm gonna go
You
ahead.
can look in the console of my car and you'll see it there.
I can't.
Sweet Tarts.
I'm going to go ahead and double check those sponsorships.
Okay.
It's the Just Start the Conversation podcast, and it's brought to you by St. Luke's University Health Network. Jody, McCloud, Missmer, Amie, Alandon, Dundon, always a pleasure, ladies. Thank you for all the insight today. I thought that was a really good episode. And go Birds, and don't go whoever you're rooting for over there, Jody.
Go Steelers.
Go Phillies.
Oh, okay, Steelers. I'm okay
Birds,
with that.
Phillies.
Okay, thanks.
Steelers are fun. Yeah, Phils.
Go Phils.
Okay.
Go Pens.
We can live with that one. It is the Just Start the Conversation podcast.